dream, thinking I won't be the same. Turn fiction into fact. See what you didn't know, bruises that'll never show, slipping on your every jab. So tighten up your fist, step into the ring with this. I hope your mama's got your back. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a buzz. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a buzz. Oh, 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 oh. Just 'cause I took a break, you're making a huge mistake, thinking you can take the throne. Look at you trembling, step into the lion's den. Bet you wish you stayed at home. Begging for mercy underneath your breath when I ain't even sweating yet. My legend's written in the stone, yeah. You're crying danger in defeat is now your only friend. Even your mama's gotta know. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a buzz. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a buzz. Oh, 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 First round, fifth round, final round. Oh, yeah. First round, fifth round, final round. No, 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 no. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a buzz. Oh,
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Overtime. A lot going on in the last couple of hours. First, today, for the first time in 2 years, Bill Cosby is sleeping at home. He has arrived back in his Pennsylvania home after being discharged by Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which has overturned his 2018 conviction for sexual assault. This was overturned, and actually, I'm sorry, it was 3 years. 3 years of his 10-year prison sentence. It was overturned on the grounds that he had testified in the civil case with immunity. He had been given immunity from prosecution by the state's prosecutor. If he testified to a number of things, including giving, I think it was quaaludes to multiple women and then having sex with them. This testimony was then the grounds for the Pennsylvania case against him. He was convicted. He has continued to tout his innocence, despite the fact that he is said himself that he did it. Nonetheless, the Supreme Court, by a vote of 6-1, and I believe this was it was the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So it was in fact the state Supreme Court, has decided by a vote of 6-1 that the conviction could not be sustained because, in fact, he did have immunity granted to him by the prosecutor. At this point, it looks like this will be the end of the case. This case against him. There have been now more than 50 women across the country who have accused him of sexual assault and or rape. The prosecutor has come out and said that he hopes that this will not deter women from in the future seeking or notifying the authorities in the cases of sexual misconduct, abuse, and/or rape. However, we'll discuss the chilling effect of this later. Nonetheless, because of the deal, it was Montgomery County District Attorney Miss Constant who had made the deal, and the deal was not honored by the next district attorney, and the court said that was wrong. So he is now home, and this case is presumably done. Whether or not he will be, any other charges will come up. I think there were a few other ones that they were considering, but the assumption was if this doesn't get overturned, he will stay in jail, so there's no point in prosecuting others. He may face other charges. He is 83 and was reported to be looking frail and in not in good condition when he arrived home earlier today. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That was just about an hour ago that broke. We also have further news. A grand jury in Manhattan has now filed a criminal indictment against Donald Trump's company and its longtime chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg. Now, Weisselberg is the CFO of the company. He has purportedly been giving free favors to his children and to Donald Trump's children in the organization. He is expected to surrender tomorrow morning at the office of the Manhattan District Attorney and is expected to be arraigned later in the day. The Trump Organization will be arraigned. This marks the first time the Trump Organization has faced criminal charges. All of the charges until now that they have faced, including the debacle with the Trump U, or actually civil cases. This is the first criminal one. The assumption at this point is that the goal is to put pressure on the CFO to turn on Trump and to hand over any materials that he has to the to the district attorney's office in the hopes that they can get him. This is how they prosecute criminal organizations. This is how they prosecute mafia, underworld organizations, stuff like that. So, and if I recall, they have a good deal of experience with this kind of thing. This is in general. This is let's see. It was the district attorney Cyrus R. Vance who has prosecuted a number of criminal organizations, and this is usually how he does it. So, I think this is the first time there's been a credible criminal threat to Trump. Now, worst case scenario, Trump would be facing fines as a result of what the organization has done. But because he has not been named, he is not facing jail time at present. They could fine the corporation. They could dissolve the corporation if they wanted to. This obviously affects Trump financially quite considerably. But until he himself is named, he is immune to any consequences of this particular or these particular indictments. More indictments are expected, although no more this week, and presumably none next week. People familiar with the indictments said. So we will obviously be following that. And they said that also no others in his immediate orbit are expected to face indictments. However, this is seen as a significant escalation in the legal challenges to Trump. And I think we are going to be looking at an attempt to file criminal charges against Trump at some point, probably, I would imagine at least 30 days away. But my suspicion is we are looking at it depending on whether or not he turns. This is, by the way, the same office that successfully gained access to all of his tax records over a 10-year period. So that in conjunction with whatever they gain from the CFO, and the CFO is the position you want if you're going to go after Trump. So we will see. And then finally, Donald Rumsfeld has passed away. He was 88 years old. He did something which was quite unusual, which is he served several non-consecutive terms as defense secretary. first under Ford and then under President Bush. He was both the youngest and the oldest person to hold that post, and held it during the Iraq War, and was considered the architect of the Iraq War after 9/11. He was obviously he was obviously harshly criticized for Abu Ghraib and for a number of missteps. He wasn't particularly good at speaking to the public, and got himself in considerable difficulty there. He was considered by most to be the most powerful defense secretary since Robert S. McNamara during the Vietnam War. Again, Donald Rumsfeld has died, and that's the one of the only ones to serve non-consecutive of any office, actually, in government. That's a a very rare thing. At any rate, those are the three stories that we are following. Again, Bill Cosby is now out of jail. It looks like he will not be back, at least not on these charges. Charges have been overturned by a Supreme Court, by the state Supreme Court, 6-1, on the grounds that he had a binding deal not to be prosecuted in exchange for his testimony in the civil case, in which he claimed that he had drugged women by putting Quaaludes in their drinks. This testimony was, in fact, used against him, ostensibly in violation of that order, and based on those grounds, he has now been freed and presumably cannot or will not be tried again. Donald Trump's organization and the organization's CFO have been indicted in just the last couple of hours. The indictment is sealed. We don't know what the charges are, but we do know that they're reasonably significant criminal charges, and they are expected to be arraigned tomorrow, both the organization itself and the CFO. This is expected to be used as a tool to apply pressure to the CFO to testify against Donald Trump and or give evidence against Trump. This is the same district attorney's office that also currently has all of Trump's records, tax records, and it is assumed that there is probably a good deal of shenanigans there. The New York Times was able to get a hold of some of those records, and it does appear like he was using a technique, I've forgotten the name of it, but essentially using the ability to get reimbursed on taxes for debt in order to actually make money, and by operating at a loss so that he could actually be paid back by the IRS for those losses. If that's true, and if it's true for the terms that we, at this point, it appears to be, he could be in trouble to the tune of at least $1 billion. His assets also appear to be significantly smaller than that, probably in the tune of around $10 million, just as guesstimates so far. So that would be a problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the live chat. I haven't seen the live chat. I haven't been engaging until I just wanted to cover all of these things. So yeah, we are late. There was a lot to cover. It was just it was an amazing couple of hours. It was just a lot broke. So let's see. Yeah, oh yeah, Andre is trying to get us a copy. Thank you. That's where we're going to get enough strikes for. Yeah, I started not muted. It's a miracle. So the problem was made because of the civil case. It was sort of. I have no idea why he testified in the civil case. I have no idea. The civil case was, if I recall, against him. Why he would testify in exchange for immunity? Well, in a civil case, actually, you have to testify. So you don't have the same ability to plead the fifth, but yeah. But at any rate, he agreed to testify and say everything that happened. Ostensibly, in a deal like that, anything that you say at that point, usually what happens is when you get a deal like that, people toss in everything, including the kitchen sink. I mean, they toss in everything because anything that they say when they have immunity is covered. They cannot be prosecuted for it later, at least not on the grounds of whatever they've said there. And if the DA has some evidence from some other means, it becomes very difficult. The DA now has to demonstrate that they actually had that evidence first, or regardless of what outside the so-called Chinese wall. They hadn't in any way whatsoever relied on the knowledge gained from the testimony that was protected. So usually in a deal like that, yeah, once they've got immunity, somebody will just throw in everything. Now, he threw in everything. He talked about drugging women and doing all this other stuff. And again, subsequently said he was innocent. This was his own testimony. So I don't, yeah, and Nate has, I think, already done a video on this. My suspicion is his breakdown is far more accurate. What is it? Well, it's going to be more nuanced and more in-depth than what you're going to see here. So that's always a good place to go, Nate, on a topic like this. But nonetheless, so, the truth is they would not have been able to convict him but for that civil case. So to say that he got released because of the civil case, well, he got convicted because of the civil case. Whether or not he probably couldn't have been convicted without it. So I think many people are going to be saying, well, they feel glad that at least they got the almost 3 years on him. So if he doesn't pay the fine, can they seize Trump Tower? Yes, they can seize anything they want to, and in fact, they can seize it all and try to make him pay the fine anyway. He's declared bankruptcy before. I am not sure. It depends on, I think, in some cases, you're protected. The judgment is protected from bankruptcy filing. In some cases, it's not. It really depends. I think in business cases, usually bankruptcy does not shield you personally. So we'll see. But it looks to me, I'm going to say it seems to me like most of the Trump organization is a house of cards. I think he is operating entirely on debt. And when the debt gets called, both from, I think it was a Ukrainian bank acting as a middleman for the Russians. So when it gets called in, both by them, which is expected, actually, I think it's later this year, and any liabilities he has here, I think the entire thing is going to come down. It's going to come down pretty hard. I don't think he's going to have enough money to defend himself. I'm sure people will help for free because it's Trump, but I think he's going to. I think we're going to learn a lot, and I think for many of us who've been watching this, none of it's going to be a surprise. But I think we can expect to see money laundering. I think we're going to be able to see, and they've already been trying to make a case for money laundering. I think they're going to be able to make it eventually, and then that's to say nothing about emoluments or anything else. Now, emoluments may be out the window, but we'll see. So at any rate. Yep. Bregwin, my theory is that the Manhattan DA is corralling Trump. Yeah, I think. Well, in general, I mean, this is kind of the game plan: is to apply the maximum pressure, get him to start questioning all his allies. And to be fair, most of us thought that when Cohen was hit, that this was going to be the end of the Trump organization, and it wasn't. So now that's not to say that. Well, to say it wasn't was even premature because these things take a while, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to make sure. And this reminds me, I'm glad I thought of this. When we look at Watergate, most of us looking at the history of it, when you just read about it in a history class, one of the things that you get the impression is that it kind of happened quickly. Nixon said he had nothing to do with it, and then a couple days later, they find out he did, and he's out of office, and yada yada. And that's not how it happened. It was drips and drabs of just little pieces of information. It just kept working its way up. That started with, 4 guys who just, bungled a robbery at the Watergate Hotel, and then what do you know? They have ties to the RNC, and then start checking that, and it's just then they kept publishing these stories, and the stories go up and up and up the chain until eventually it's clear the president had something to do with this. So, okay, they got Cohen, who says that he was working for the president. Obviously, he's going to deny it and say, no, the lawyer was doing all things on his own, so they need to get corroborating evidence. It just takes a while. But this feels a lot like that. It feels a lot like we're getting the incremental pieces that are going along bit by bit that are going to lead to, and if even half of what the Manhattan District Attorney appears to be onto, which again, one of the biggies is money laundering. The only reason you go to Deutsche Bank is to launder money. I mean, this is not controversial. So I think, yeah, that's a good question. I think the idea is to force him to defend himself on multiple fronts. Force him. Yep. So I think Bregman's got a good. I think it's a larger strategy. Just force him to not be able to trust his own allies, to get more paranoid, and then his allies may want to bail too. And once a couple start cutting deals, usually the rest want a deal, and so they all jump ship. And that didn't happen with Cohen in the way I'd expected, and we talked about that. And hey, this is a op-ed show as well, so we sat there and we said that Cohen was probably going to be the start of it, and that was a bit long, I think, for that to still be justifiable. But my suspicion is Cohen is still going to be a huge part of this when it shakes out. But clearly, we didn't have everybody jumping ship. This is the CFO of his entire organization, and the organization itself is now indicted. And I think the other thing that happens is they get blood in the water. There are plenty of people who want to sue Trump for this, that, and the other. There are people who've wanted to. People have been suing him. I forget how many lawsuits on average. I want to say like 300 a year, something like that. That's kind of a don't quote me on that, but it's a lot. He's been getting a lot of civil suits because he won't pay anybody. He doesn't pay the people who work for him. He doesn't pay independent contractors. So the people who have been waiting to sue him now sit there and think now's the time. So I think their hope is going to be that just sort of everybody just comes on board and jumps the organization at once, and they have to defend themselves on every front, small and large, simultaneously. So we will see. Yeah, if he declares bankruptcy, he can't touch any hidden assets without. Well, if he declares bankruptcy, I think Titan's got a good point, and I think if he's hiding money, which my suspicion is he's hiding money, but my suspicion also is he's not doing it well. So, if he's got money that's accessible, to, like, say, Deutsche Bank, the Russians are just going to sit there and say, well, we're taking our money back. And they get their money back. And even if he's, quote, hiding it, the bank just hands it over to the Russians. Now, most banks wouldn't do this, but on the flip side, that money's all off the books. So he's not going to be, it reminds me of when, there's a story of somebody goes into the police station and says, I want to report a robbery. Okay, who robbed you? Well, my roommate. What'd they steal? They stole all my marijuana plants. Okay. That one doesn't work as well as it used to. But nonetheless, I think, he can't do anything about it, and they know that. So if he loses, my suspicion is his hidden money isn't diversified, and it's not hidden particularly well. And my guess is that the feds will be able to snag some of it, and the rest will be taken by the people who are hiding it, because what the fuck is he going to do about it? So, but I think that's good. That war in Iraq was a crime, should never have happened. I think that argument is made by a great many people. I assume. Well, now wait a minute. I mean, the second one was obviously probably. Well, yeah. We'll save that for another time. That's it. Chair, people are going to say, why bother? They're just going to get away with it. Why would I go through the humiliation of testifying if nothing will come of it? I think that's true. I do want to say that at a minimum, Bill Cosby has probably suffered considerably. Has he suffered as much as he should? Has there been justice? I don't think that's a defensible statement that he has. But at his age in jail, I think that the description of him essentially crying to his wife and saying, just call everybody, just take whatever money you need and get me out of here. He was not having. They're not good to people like this in jail for any number of reasons, and so my suspicion is he was in sheer hell most of at least those 2 years. So whether or not that makes up for it or not, nothing's going to make up for it. But hopefully. You understand the point, which is at least something happened, and it's not something to sneeze at. So, but it wasn't what was expected, and certainly he was given 10 years, and he's going out after 3. So, but he's got no reputation. He's never going to be able to operate again, and it sounds like he's greatly diminished. So, we'll see. But I think that's true. I think it's disconcerting. It's difficult now for anybody who wants to testify, anybody who's a victim of anything. Once again, sort of like there's already trust issues, right? How do you come out and tell people these things? And then come out and then say it in public. And then do that for what? 10, 20% chance they're going to go to jail? It's already a problem. And I don't know how we solve it, but yeah. All right. Yep. I'm not sure. We saw this lag issue earlier. I'm gonna take a hard look at it tomorrow. So anyways, I think that's about it. We just wanted to. It was a lot going on over the next 3 hours. Once again, to run down Donald Rumsfeld, Defense Secretary for Ford and Bush, architect of the Iraq War, and presumably responsible for Abu Ghraib in that he had authorized the enhanced techniques, but was certainly never held responsible.